All righty. Thank you, Dr. Sperling, for inviting us, and to the other half of your dynamic duo, Mandel. Let's hear it for Mandel back there. Again, I'm Tom Ruiz, my wife Jackie, and we have a nice evening in store for you today. And so, in case you're wondering about this picture, some of you may or may not be old enough to remember a place called the Holiday Star Theater. Does that name ring a bell from back in the day? Some of you may have seen our first concert there or something like that. That's where we had our graduation. And we're both IUN graduates, class of 1995. And so I went straight into education. Jackie was delayed a little bit with another avenue and then got into education. We're going to share with you some of the things that we've learned along the way. It's been a wonderful career for the two of us that we've cherished, and we're going to share a few of the things that we've learned that might be helpful to you in some way, shape, or form. And our relationship goes pretty far back.
So we met in high school, so we were high school sweethearts, and so that was our senior year, that's our prom, and so we started dating then, and this past summer, last summer, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary.
So, yeah, thanks. Yeah. And we fulfilled a lifelong dream of making it to Hawaii for our 25th. The only reason we made it is because everything was like dirt cheap on sale after COVID. And like, oh my goodness, we're never going to have this opportunity again. You know, educators, here we are, and we made it. So this is our family. We have a couple daughters, and they're great girls, athletic, very involved. And this picture was taken in 2016. And so out at the dunes. How many fans of the dunes do we have? Jackie and I are nature lovers, so we do our best to spend a lot of time out at the dunes. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about my career. Jackie will talk a little bit about her career, so you know where we're coming from. We're not just a couple of yahoos up here that don't have much experience in the classroom. We've done a lot over the years. And then our careers have even crossed paths for a while when we were both teachers at Guyan Middle School. But I started my career at East Chicago Central High School. Matter of fact, this picture right here is me. I was the freshman, amongst a lot of other things, I was the freshman class sponsor. And back then it was not like some kind of a choice. The principal came up to me and said, "Son, you're going to be the freshman class principal." And I said, "Yes, Dr. Flores, whatever you need." And so I gathered the freshmen. One of their dads was a truck driver who brought a flatbed truck and to the parade that we were in, the homecoming parade. So that's me handing out candy to the kids that we were passing out to the children of East Chicago as we were participating. The only semi-truck in the parade. They put us at the end. Then my career took a major turn when Jackie got accepted to school in Indianapolis, and I found myself with a couple different opportunities, but wound up at Guyan Creek Middle School, a middle school on the northwest side of Indianapolis. And I had other opportunities, but I kind of liked the makeup of the school, and the principal at the time was from Hobart, another region guy, said, "Yeah, let me go work for this guy and work with these kids." And I did it all there. I coached baseball, basketball, football. I helped sponsor clubs, some of which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Took kids on lots of class trips, and kind of out of necessity, back around like the late 90s, it was kind of weird. Jackie and I, for a while, when we first moved to Indy, it was like culture shock. Moving from the region, growing up in East Chicago, moving to Indy, sometimes we felt like the only Hispanic people in the entire city of Indianapolis. And then something weird happened. It was like somebody turned on a switch, and Hispanic folks from all different countries, Latin America, came pouring into the city of Indianapolis to seek employment. and the school systems, including Pike Township where we were at, were just flooded with these kids that showed up that didn't speak any English. And here we are, and we've got to do something for these kids. So just kind of grassroots, we decided to start a club, kind of take these kids under our wing. And I literally stayed after school. I kind of begged, borrowed, and stealed, and I got materials to teach English to these Spanish speakers, and I stayed after school multiple days a week trying to teach these kids English. I thought, well, if they're going to have any chance at all in high school, well, let's get them right now while they're in middle school and try to teach them some English. Then I wound up at Southport 6th Grade Academy. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We had around 600 6th graders all under one roof. 600 6th graders all under one roof. Perry Township had the 2 largest middle schools in the entire state of Indiana. And they realized these sweet little innocent 6th graders being in the mix with 1,500 other kids, 7th and 8th graders, that wasn't good for them. And let's keep them innocent for one more year. And so they decided to create 2 different 6th grade academies. And I was the assistant principal of one, and then wound up coming to Northwest Indiana, back to the region. What do you think brought us back to the region? The weather? Yeah, as we're expecting a polar vortex tonight. No, as we started having kids, it was time to be back near the grandparents and the support system. Jackie has 4 siblings, and so I had a couple opportunities. I wound up at St. Mary Catholic Community School in Crown Point and raised my daughters in the school, fell in love with the place, had lots of adventures, and that's where I'm at right now. And had lots of silly things. There's me kissing a cow. I think that was as a reward to the students for reaching a certain goal in a food drive. And, this kids in Crown Point, one of the things I really wanted to stress is that, here in the region, it's a diverse part of the state, a unique part of the state. And, there's a lot of people away from their sheltered little world that could use our help. So the food drive was a big deal to me, enough of a big deal that I literally had a cow brought into the gym. So that's a little kind of a nutshell about me. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jackie so she could tell you a little bit about her history.
One thing that Tom didn't mention is that he did receive the Teacher of the Year award when he was down in Pike Township. Teaching science, so he did accomplish that too. So it was, a huge, huge honor. So, oh, we have to go back one, I think, right? In mine.
Yep. There you
okay,
go.
so like Tom mentioned, my career has began here too studying, but I studied biology and chemistry. So I came into the school here and going to become a science major. And so I do have my bachelor's in bio and my minor in chem. And then from there, I applied to the School of Dentistry at IU School of Dentistry, other places as well, and that's where I was accepted. So that's when he said where we went down to Indy is because that's where I ended up. And then I did a year of dental school and I did not like it. So after all of that preparation and after all that science, which I love science, but I didn't like School of Dentistry. So I had all of this background knowledge and all this content, and he was teaching at that time, and he's like, so you need to come back and you need to be a science teacher. I'm like, oh, I never thought about teaching. I'm like, I can teach kids? I'm like, I don't know. So I went to IUPUI, and I went back into the school to transition to teaching. And that's where I began studying and taking my teaching courses. Since I had all the science background, I didn't need any of that. I just went ahead and took then the program. While I was there, they said, well, don't forget that we do need administrators too, like in the future. So if you ever want to become an administrator, you may want to consider doing an administrative program as well. At that point, I was all twirled around. I'm like, I don't know what, I have this, I have the choices. So I did end up doing my teaching program, and then I ended up at Pike, and that's where Tom was teaching at the time. And a couple of years, and we did 6th grade science together. So he was literally across the hall from me. So you can imagine the fun we had with that, because the kids, the students, either had the Mr. or the Mrs., Ruiz for science. So it was pretty cool. From there, though, so that was 6th grade, that was middle school. So God bless all of our middle school teachers, because, oh my goodness. Middle school.
Okay.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes, because when you said 6th grade, 7th and 8th grade, they're a whole nother group. Eventually then I went to Southport. So like Tom said, he went to 6th grade academy, and then from there I went to Southport High School for biology and chemistry. So I left the middle school and I started teaching then at Southport High School. And there, just like I was tapped on the shoulder. I became the senior class sponsor. I was in charge of homecoming. I'm like, what? I don't know what to do. They're like, well, just don't lose the kids. Don't let them do this or that, because they were seniors. I didn't know what was going on. In charge of prom, the dances. I'm like, oh my goodness. So yes, all of that. So then, of course, when we came back to the region, this is now, fast forward with the children. So then I ended up teaching at Lake Central High School. So I taught there, and again, biology, chemistry, AP, environmental, APES, and environmental science.
Award-winning science teacher. Bell Award.
Thank you.
Award winner.
Thank you.
Environmental science.
So we love science, and we still do. It's still our passion, and we just enjoy it. And then at that point, Tom at this point was already an administrator and a principal, and he's like, he said, don't ever forget that you have an admin license. And I said, oh, but I'm right in the middle of, of all of this greatness at LC and doing so well. I just love the teaching. And so sure enough, Diocese of Gary, where the schools are, they needed a principal at St. Stan's, that's in East Chicago. And so I went for the interview, not knowing what was going to happen. And sure enough, they called and said, we would like you to become a principal. And I was like, wow, this is a whole nother avenue for myself. And I just like,
Administrators here?
well, yes. Okay. So it was very interesting. So I did that, and that was 7 years there at St. Stan's. And now then, eventually, a couple years ago, this is my second year at Lincoln Elementary in Hammond. But eventually, I ended up having an opportunity to switch over to Lincoln, and that's right by Wolf Lake, if you know, so up on Calumet Avenue, right back there. And so very similar to St. Stan's, but larger. Same community, but just larger. We go pre-K all the way through 6th grade. And just like you were saying about 6th grade, when I came in, last year was the first year they kept 6th grade in an elementary school, because prior to that it was pre-K through 5. And wow, I was like, what just happened? Because those 6th graders did not want any part of the elementary school. They wanted to be in middle school, but they were like, why did you keep us back? But this year, it's a whole nother adventure, and it's a lot better. Mm-hmm.
I co-sponsored a program called Boys to Men, and the majority of the boys in the program didn't have that male role model in their life, and one of our teachers kind of wrote me in, and there I went. And then Jackie, some of those other pictures, if you want to point them out, the middle one there, do you remember that one?
Yep, we were at Bloomington. We went to Bloomington on that one, and we took a group of students, and that was their first experience on a college campus.
Yeah, first time setting foot on a college campus. Took them on trips, and there's that club that I mentioned. And so we don't want to sit here talking about ourselves all night, but I did mention that we are doing that little video. We do have a YouTube channel. It's just starting out. If any of you are interested in hearing what the heck we have to say about various topics, feel free to subscribe. Every once in a while we'll hop on and talk about a topic. This was state testing. And honestly, we gave our honest opinion. And how many of you are big fans of state testing here? Okay, yeah, we feel the same way as administrators. And but again, we don't want to sit here and talk about ourselves all night. Here's the deal, Jackie.
So we are going to have a simple activity with Play-Doh, and it's an icebreaker activity. It is pretty fun. So you have Play-Doh on your table, so any color, feel free. So you want to go ahead and take one at this time, and then we'll give you the directions right now.
All right, it's pretty simple. Big decisions here, big decisions. What color? All right. All right, here's your activity. You've got 5 minutes. Make something that depicts or describes you as an educator. Make something that depicts or describes you as an educator. All right, you've got 5 minutes. Go. Let's see this creativity. As we wandered around, we noticed you put a lot of thought into this. And when we first think of, okay, I'm playing with Play-Doh, but so many of you put some thought and creativity into it. Is there anybody at any of the tables that feels compelled to share, or maybe you could nominate a classmate in the back there?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hanifa. Is it working? Oh, oh, okay. And I created basketball, and I just shared with my table that I think it's important to know that when you're in teaching in urban settings and schools, no matter where, you got to be willing to be bounced around a little bit. It's just the reality. You need to be flexible, you need to be resilient, and you need to be willing to put in the same energy and work. And Jason made a very good point here that sometimes you need to air yourself out every once in a while. Is that what you said, right? Take a deep breath or something. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Let's hear it for, what's your name? Hanifa. Anybody else want to share? Okay. Oh, that way the video will pick it up. There you go.
Okay, so I made something very simple, but has a lot of meaning. It's a handprint. And so I think about the fact that we have children's lives in our hands. And the things that we do with them on an everyday basis makes an impression, a lifelong impression on them that may affect them in the future. And it can make them successful or it can stifle them. So every day that we work with them, we're putting an imprint in their lives that will hopefully, they will grow to be successful one day because we're making an impression on them.
We've got some great educators in the room. Wow. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. All right. Like I said, I didn't want to put anybody on the spot and, put the pressure on. But as I said, some very thoughtful artwork there. Now, when Mandel created the flyer, she mentioned something about our years of experience that we have. And so what I like to do is take a little bit of time to share with some of the real truths that we've learned about throughout all those years, over 50 years in education combined. So we're going to talk a little bit about the truths that we've learned. And this slide right here is, that's me when I was coaching my daughter's basketball. I've coached girls basketball for about the last, 14, 15 years straight. Formerly a boys basketball coach. Girls are a lot different, but a joy, an absolute joy. And that's my daughter after we had just won the championship. And I'll tell you what though, what you get out of anything is directly proportional of what you put in. I started with these girls right here when they were itty bitties. They were about 7 years old. Taught them how to dribble, taught them how to run with the ball and dribble, taught them how to shoot. And as we were teaching them and my assistant coaches and I over the years, by the time it came to actually playing school ball, our girls had a good advantage, but we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into what we were doing. And that applies to the classroom as well. I've noticed throughout my career, whether it's a classroom or teacher or as an administrator, the people you're with, whether they're 11-year-old students or 65-year-old veteran teachers, they can very easily realize how much effort you're putting in. Even a little kid on the other end of the spectrum, 7-year-olds, can see how much effort that you put in, and you get out of those experiences, and you get out of your people, whether your people are your students or your faculty that you're in charge of, you get out what you put in. Another truth, before I turn it back over to Jackie, anybody remember Roosevelt High School here in Gary? Roosevelt High School here in Gary. My former principal, God rest his soul, his name is Glenn Miller. I don't know that that name means anything to anybody. He was a star back at Roosevelt back in the day, went on to play, I think, like Tennessee State, eventually became an administrator, and he was my boss. And as a rookie teacher, as a young, impressionable teacher, he told me, Ruiz, you got to reach them before you can teach them. And especially with those kids that walk into your class that the teacher down the hall complains about and says, oh, this kid's too rough, kid talks back, this kid that, this kid this, whatever. I've had kids like that, and I'm sure many of you, because I could tell there's some really good educators in this room as we went around and you had your thoughtful answers with that Play-Doh. You reach those kids, they will run through brick walls for you. I guarantee it. I see you shaking your heads. You've all experienced it. Here's the sad thing. You probably all know that you have colleagues, some of whom have a 10, 20, 30, 40-year career and never get that. Don't be that one. You be the one that makes sure that every kid in that classroom knows that you care about their well-being and their success. Now, enough of the serious talk. Jackie has another little slide here.
So we know another truth we've learned, if you're not laughing, you're crying. So choose to laugh. And again, every day when we go into our classrooms or into our buildings, you come in with the plan. I know at least for myself, you do that, and then all of a sudden the day starts and that plan just kind of went out the window. But one of the stories I remember at Lake Central High School, I was there. I left when they were transitioning to building the new school, so I didn't get to see it until I came back to see it later. But we had to walk. It was the science department was across the way, and so one day we're walking through the halls trying to get our copies and trying to do all that in between the prep time and so forth.
Behind this.
But one of the things that another colleague of mine, we're walking. We see a student like from far away, just kind of walking and so forth, and we're talking and we're trying to get our things in, and we just kind of see something like just go off to the side. Well, believe it or not, they were walking to the hall. They ate a banana, and they didn't think to throw the banana peel away. They just kind of threw it. So here we go. We're walking, and the teacher, my colleague, she's like, whoop, and then there she goes. I mean, literally, like you slipped on a banana. It's like, who could make that stuff up? But it happened. So instead of course, like you're saying, reprimanding and getting all upset, and I mean, you could have gone in so many ways. We just looked at each other and we were just laughing because I mean, at that point, it's like you have to, it's one or the other, I mean, thank goodness it wasn't like a big, hurt or anything, but it was good. You just have to take that every single day because if not, it's just so much already as it is that you can't let it get to you. You can't in all of the situations and circumstances, whether it's with parents or with other students or with colleagues and staff members, you just can't. You just have to make sure that you find the humor to it all. So that's another one.
All right.
Yes.
So next activity, share a funny teacher story. I know you've got them. I see veteran teachers here. I know you've got them. Take 5 minutes, share a funny teacher story. Go. Oh, and keep it clean. we heard some good laughs throughout the room, and you have to do that. You've got to seek out those colleagues, no matter how bad your day went, how bad your science experiment was a flop, whatever happened. You've got to seek out those colleagues that you can laugh with, because that will help you get through the school year. Another one of those truths that we've learned: middle schoolers jump. Now let me tell you what I mean by that, and some of you are already shaking your head. You know they do. When I went from EC Central teaching science in a full-blown science lab and high-end stuff, high school science, to teaching 6th grade and 7th grade science, terrible culture shock. After about a month, I had this feeling where I just stopped in the hallway, and like to my core, I was thinking, what in the hell did I get myself into? Teaching 6th and 7th grade, because they're a different animal from what I was used to, and a completely different animal from the little people that some of you teach. Well, one thing I can tell you, you can go into any middle school in the state of Indiana, and there's like a door jamb somewhere, and it's got little handprints all over it, because every guy, the biggest guy in the 6th grade and the littlest guy in the 6th grade, they all want to see how high up they can jump and touch it. And the funny thing about it is, after being in the middle school for a few months and kind of adjusting, whether you're in elementary, high school, middle school, you start taking on the characteristics of your students. So there were times I found myself, I was walking down the hallway and I was thinking, damn, I wonder if I could jump up and get that. And it's true, it really does happen. But the point here is, when you've got these kids that are exploring, they're testing out their boundaries, what can I do intellectually, physically, emotionally, what can I do? Well, you've got to harness that. So one of the things that I would do, and I still do, we're having a talent show at St. Mary's next month. Provide them opportunities. And it's not always the sports stars or the track stars or the academic all-stars. Provide them opportunities to see just what exactly they could do. And the little girl on my left, or on the left there, was like one of the quietest girls in the school. Softest little voice, could never hear her speak. But when she got on stage with that talent show and started belting out her song, everybody took notice, and she was a shining star. This little guy, I think it was Fiddler on the Roof. Like, what 6th grade boy does Fiddler on the Roof? And so, you'll give them those opportunities, and you'll be amazed at what they can do. Jackie, you're on.
The other thing that we always have to remember, as educators, we make a difference. Sometimes, maybe many times throughout the day, and maybe at weeks, and usually on Fridays, you reflect maybe on your whole entire week and you say, what? Did I do anything, and did I make a difference? But the answer is yes. You truly make a difference. Just like we talked about, some of you talked about the imprint, about making those connections with the children. We do, and everything, as you can see here, from of course, as we know, we love science and we love nature, but taking our students out to explore it, just bringing that joy to them and having that bond, and just not the classroom in your building, but taking them out and experiencing that. I mean, it's really, really fun, and it just makes that connection, and you do make that impact, and you make the difference. And with the world that we live in, I mean, and how things are now, we're like their shining star every single day. Like if they don't see me in the morning on car and to greet them, they're like, where are you? Like, why aren't you out there, welcoming me into the building? Because they're like, are you okay? Are you sick? And then it's like they just notice. And a lot of times I'm like, they don't notice. Like, they're just trying to get into the building and not be late. But they do. They do truly notice everything. and it's really a powerful, career, and it's something that we really truly take to heart and to do that because it's a difference every single day that we make.
I think sometimes it gets forgotten. You get so wrapped up in your stupid NWEA scores or iLearn scores
Yeah.
or all that other stuff that's part of education, evaluations, you name it, all the other stuff can kind of take your focus away from what's really important. We truly do make a difference. And to Jackie's point, if you turn on the news and you see stuff happening in the world, by the time a lot of that stuff happens, it's already too late. You guys are on the front line helping to change lives. And I'll tell you what, I do want to acknowledge, we have a couple of younger students here who are becoming teachers. They are doing something that is counter-culture. All of their friends have probably told them, hey, go make more money doing something else. Do something that's easier. Let's hear it for these young ladies over here who are going into education and getting their degrees.
Yes.
You have a card on your table. There's enough for everybody. We're going to do an activity, think and feel, AKA head and heart.
Yeah.
On one side, I want you to write what you think about that statement. What you think about that statement. Educators make a difference. On the other side, what you feel in your heart. Go. Okay, we're gonna kind of bring it back in again. And I'll tell you what, it was really wonderful to wander throughout the tables, throughout the whole evening for that, for that part. To hear what you've had to say, sharing with colleagues. I was at that back table, heard just a really heartwarming story that made me feel good to be part of this culture of educators, this field that we're in, this fraternity that we're in. Hey, we've all been through the battles, and many of us, some of us more than others, but we've been through those battles, and the battle is for the lives of these kids, and so that we can help them improve. Does anyone have a story from this last activity that they'd like to share?
My heart is something that's really important to me because in society of today, you have to have.
That's not
I'm sorry.
projecting your voice.
You have to have.
Nice, real
You
loud.
will have to have a big heart for the things that you do in life. And you know what? I feel more like it gives me a tendency to feel more. I'm an educator, trying to be, but I feel like a mom. And I love my students very much. And, it just touched my heart sometimes of different things that we do and the laughter that we have and the enjoyment of finding out what they like and what they don't like. And it just has been such a blessing to me just to hear them laugh and to tell Miss Carrie and just to hear them say my name. And, I feel so proud. It makes me feel proud just to hear them say my name, just to hear them have that respect for me as well as I have respect for them. And it's just a joy. And when you talk about the heart, that's what I'm saying. Every day it's a hard thing. A hard thing of learning what they like, a hard thing of giving to them, a hard thing of being able to reach out to them and to be able to educate them. It's so heartful, and I love it.
Thank you.
Thank
Beautiful,
you.
beautiful, beautiful. And I think the educators in the room, everybody here can agree that your heart is what keeps you coming back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the marathon that is a school year. Your heart has to be in it, and that's the motor. That's what really drives you. Okay, we were given a time slot of an hour and a half. We're an hour in. I think we had a really nice evening. But we do have one more slide to share with you. You've got two educators here who are not going to hold back any punches. So if you have any questions based on our years of experience, how we handle things, what we did, if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer them. Yes, the best we can.
So this is Tracy and I are both current East Chicago Central High School teachers.
Okay.
So it's nice to see someone who used to work at Central.
I almost burned Central down a couple times. And I loved teaching there. Absolutely loved it.
And it's still a great place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. We've got another EC Central teacher here. She stepped away. But yeah, my good buddy Dave Lane is, in my opinion, I, as a rookie teacher, when he was like in year 3 or 4, and all the kids just flocked to him, he was like my hero. I wanted to be like Dave Lane. And he is the man in my book where he and I are still Facebook friends, and I see him doing great things over there to this very day. And every time I do, I'm very proud of him for doing what he does over there. So please tell him Tom Ruiz says hi, and
I will go up and talk to him tomorrow and tell him I saw you.
I appreciate that. Anybody else? Questions? Yes?
Well, I think I'd like to know, like, what was your overall best experience that you remember having? May have been challenging and you overcame it, or just what's overall that you remember from teaching?
Let's see. From teaching, and I'll give my answer, then I'll let Jackie answer. For teaching, reaching the kids that other people couldn't reach, and having those kids connect with me, and then seeing those kids later on in life I'll give you an example. Sherman was the toughest kid at Guyan Middle School in the 6th grade. I don't know how many grades he had flunked, but this dude had muscles in 6th grade. The other boys feared him. He was popular, but man, he would give the other teachers a run for their money. And he tried that with me. We butted heads, but eventually we came to an understanding. And then one day I was working on something. I was building something in my classroom, and I did something that's probably totally inappropriate for the year 2023, but I let Sherman use a circular saw. Do you know what a circular saw is? Like to cut wood? I made him watch me multiple times. Now, a lot of you are saying, oh my God. I come from a place, EC, where they taught us wood shop and metal shop as 7th and 8th grade. I learned how to weld in 8th grade. I learned how to use a lathe in 7th grade. So it wasn't that big of a stretch in my mind. I know a lot of teachers would, fall over and faint knowing that. But I taught Sherman how to use a skill saw and cut a few pieces of wood, just a few pieces, just to try it out. Man, Sherman, he had never done anything like that in his whole life. And I made sure, I told him, hey, this is dangerous. I could get fired for this. And the fact that I let him do that, man, Sherman, again, he would run through a brick wall for me. And when I saw him later in life, I was going to a sketchy part of town to get tires for my truck because the prices on tires on that side of town were cheaper, and I didn't mind going there. So I pull up to a light, and a carload of young people pulls up next to me. And like a hoopty, just a beat up old car. And it kind of looked like a movie from Cheech and Chong, where it was like a fog out in this car. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh God, I'm kind of scared. And all of a sudden this window goes down. Mr. Ruiz, how you doing? And oh man, I love you, man, and all this stuff. Sherman. And yeah. That was Sherman, and to know that he remembered me 10 years later, that, the head and the heart, that was the heart right there. You give your story.
As a teacher, I think it was very similar to your experience, Tom. At Lake Central, I was able to teach the biology, freshman biology, sophomore chem, and then, like I said, junior and senior environmental science. So in the AP environmental science, there were mostly seniors at that point, but that course was so neat because we were able to do some really neat activities like yoga outside at the pond. We were able to explore things, and later on in life, you know, those experiences and those lessons were just not about the content. It was about really getting to know the students and making those connections. And so later on, I still have, you know, lunch or breakfast with some of the students. Of course, they're older now. They've you know, started their careers, and some of them already have their own children. But it's really neat that they come back and they's like, I remember when we did yoga at the pond, and then we were laughing, or we went to, you know, to sled, and it was really interesting that they can't tell me about, you know, the carbon cycle or whatever. That wasn't the point. The point is that you're still making those relationships. And as an administrator, I did hear, you know, some of you when you're telling about we make a difference. Yes, I know sometimes we feel, or as teachers, my staff, I always look at them and I'm here, I'm in your corner. How can I help? First thing, how can I help you? What can I do? If you need a break, you know, hey, you go take a break. The other day we were short a recess, you know, supervisor or recess aide, and then the recess, you know, supervisors came to me and they said, we need help. I said, okay, what room, where, what? And I was there. And it's not like, oh, I can't, or hold on, let me look at my schedule. No, at that moment in time, that is what we do. Like everything else, all the paper on my desk stops. Like it doesn't matter, because at that moment, you need me, and you can count on me. So that's, as an administrator, they know that. And so they know that they can depend on me, and that they can definitely reach out at any time. So I hope that, you know, you have those experiences too, and that you know that we're here, that as administrators, we're here for you. Because that's how we're going to make a difference all together. Mm-hmm.
How about yeah, let's hear. And yeah, I'll tell you what, she did stuff with those high schoolers that they had never done. Like, who takes kids in high school on field trips? This one right here. And how about other questions, comments? Greg?
You both are school administrators. What is your biggest challenge as a school administrator? Is it, you know, managing the adults, your staff? Is it discipline, parents? What is the biggest challenge?
Yeah, as much as I love the classroom, you know, taking that step to administration, you know, getting the lobotomy and, you know, doing that, it does come with a whole new set of headaches. And I guess probably one of the bigger challenges, and I don't want to speak too much for her, but you know, we both have the challenge of, like, you can't just turn it off. You just can't just walk out of your classroom, you're done for the day, and you'll start your next lesson tomorrow morning. As an administrator, it's, you know, 24/7, 365. And if you're needed, you're needed. And if there's a staff member who needs a phone call at 9:30 at night when you're trying to watch your Netflix program, but they need to talk, that's your priority right there. And you've got to be there for your people. So the ability to not just turn it off like I did when I was a classroom teacher. Jackie?
For me, I think these last couple of years have been becoming that therapist, because our students and everybody needs to talk to someone, and it's an emotional roller coaster. And I'm not a therapist. I'm here to listen and help, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I need help too. Like, I need to turn to someone, because it's a lot. From parents to students to our own faculty and staff. So that has been a challenge for me these past 2 years. I mean, we've made it, but everybody needs so much since, you know, of course, you know, from COVID on. The education world changed us. I mean, that changed our world. So that has been my struggle. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Would you go back to teaching? You know what? I love teaching. I really, really did. But I love what I do right now. And I don't know, as a science teacher, former science teacher, I could, see me ending my career, teaching science and doing lots of hands-on fun labs. I could see that. We'll see. I guess I want to be at a point where I'm happy and satisfied doing what I'm doing. I feel that now as an administrator. I get that from my kids. I get that from my staff. I get that from my parents. And I feel like I'm okay at what I do. But if that ever changes, I don't want to be that guy that's crabby coming to work and not happy. I can't live like that. I can't.
I kind of solved that problem this year. So since of course, with science, I love it. So I made a science lab in my school, and so I do take the kids up there, and I do labs with them. So that's where I get my science in with them because I just do miss it. So I do. I have continued that. Last year it was a new school, so I couldn't really do that. But this year I'm doing it, and so I love it. I love it. Maybe one day I will end up, back in the classroom. I would love it.
And I also get my fix of science and working directly with kids in the respect that for the last 17 years I've run my environmental club. I've roped in a couple of teachers, and some of those pictures you saw out at the dunes, that was, me and a couple of teachers taking these kids and teaching about the environment and the earth that we are charged with protecting and preserving for future generations. And just working with those kids and teaching science, it gives me that fix that I need. How about other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions, Mandel has some prizes, and who doesn't like prizes? Let's hear it for Mandel one more time. Thanks for being a good audience and listening to us.
Thank you, Mandel. Thank you.
This is our first time giving a presentation like this ever.
Yes.
So thank you for being a good audience.
Thank you.